I love food. Foods are my favorite part.
There we go, and here we are. Welcome to another edition of the Energy Podcast. Ryan Ray alongside Dr. Energy herself, Ellen Wald. And this will be recorded on video, so Nate Hansen is the man in the middle today. So we are going to put this up on YouTube and try to start putting these out a little bit more regularly with technology. So, Ellen, how is everything in Florida?
Well, now that my power is back on, things are much better.
Oh, that's
Would have
good.
been an interesting podcast if I had no power.
Yeah, the irony of Dr. Energy not having power is not lift without noticing. So, Dr. Energy, let's see here. Is it hot down there? I know you. So I can hear we're still in extreme heat because we didn't get any of the hurricane coolness. So you guys have gotten some of the rain, I'm guessing.
So we didn't. So interestingly, the hurricane kind of blocked it. The path of the hurricane kind of actually blocked us out from moisture for a while. Typically, at this time of year, it's like rain all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Which actually, so typically we get these afternoon thunderstorms that tend to block the heat. So like it'll be getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And then if it rains, then we won't hit 95. We'll only get to like 90 or 86.
Mm-hmm.
But today and yesterday have just been bizarrely rainy. There was like a huge storm at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. So
well, we're supposed to get some rain tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday. So hopefully it will cool it down a little bit. And speaking of things that are coming up, we had the big event 2 weeks from tomorrow, the Shell webinar. What is the future of the Shell industry? And let me tell you, I was looking at some numbers. I think did you put that in here today? Yeah, you actually. I think you put in the export numbers. Yeah. So we're looking at that. It's kind of interesting to see what's going on around the world. And of course, I don't think we have this story, but I'm ready for Dr. Foreman to come on because I'm curious to see what they're making of all of these airline cuts. It feels like every day that there's a new airline. I don't know how many more airline jobs we can cut, but apparently there's a lot more. So with that being said, headline from Reuters: Brent hits 5 months high as Abu Dhabi supply cuts China data. Like, hold on. Let me just so people don't think I'm making this up. I can turn the screen share on, right? Yeah, I can turn the screen share. So here we go. There it is. Okay. I don't know if y'all can see that or not, but it's on the webinar. Yeah, there it is. So I just want to say this. We live in an environment where anytime the president says literally anything, we have like 62 fact checkers come out of the wood. Okay. Should we do this when we talk about foreign entities' data, whether it's China or Russia or I don't know, Saudi Arabia or Iran? Like it feels like we need like a fact checker for their data as well, but we don't have such a thing. And so, anyways, oil rose on Monday with Brent touching the highest in 5 months, underpinned by a 30% cut in Abu Dhabi crude supplies and encouraging data. Chinese data, even as global demand struggles to return to pre-COVID levels in a well-supplied market. And that brought up something else this morning I was looking at. I wrote an article for Xinhua back in January. And it was right after Soleimani had been killed. Okay, so Soleimani had been killed, and then they sent they attacked our base in Baghdad, or Iraq, wherever. It was at Baghdad. Anyways, and remember the price kind of went up for like a day and whatnot. Remember how oversupplied the market was just 7 months ago? Are we really ready to say that the market is not that much oversupplied? Have we used that much, you think?
Yeah, I don't think we've used that much. Look at Goldman Sachs just came out today, and they said that that they're like that they thought that prices were going to be higher in second half of 2020, and now they're pushing it to 2021. It's interesting because I think that you should pair this article with the next one on the list, which is from CNBC, which says oil prices edge up on stimulus support despite ample supplies. And meanwhile, we had oil prices basically flat all of last week, despite the fact that there was a hurricane which took 1.6 million barrels a day offline in the Gulf of Mexico, and that's still offline because they're still trying to restart. And right. WTI maybe inched up like to 40, like a little higher than 43. Couldn't even make it to 44 on this. So it's these are very small incremental moves up. And, if you're taking the long picture and you look at oil prices, like from over the past 3 months, you'll say, yeah, we've got a nice, kind of steady increase there. But these kind of events that are, supposed to, I think people are like waiting for something. They're waiting for something or some reason to move higher, and they're just not quite getting it.
Yeah, on some level, you had to feel bad for the analysts because what are the new numbers? What are the new metrics? How do they view those things? What numbers are actually the ones that are going to move the market? Obviously, we have a lot of traditional indicators that are still relevant, but what relevance do they play, or how much of a relevance do they play? More or less is yet to be seen. You mentioned, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so we also have this article. It's not really an article. It comes from this site called Value Penguin, which I think basically gives car insurance, or is a car insurance site. But they did this study that says that they found that 61 million Americans have stopped commuting. I mean, I thought this was incredible. They said 3 out of 10 Americans who own cars, okay, have stopped commuting either because they lost their jobs or because they're working from home. And that's not an insignificant number of people. And so when people are talking about that, they were looking at, I think a lot of these forecasts came from looking at the demand numbers. They were rising throughout, basically kind of steadily rising, some ups and downs throughout throughout July and August. But the summer's over. People still aren't really commuting very much. A lot of kids still aren't going to school. Some are, which is a positive. But, now that people aren't taking their 500-mile plus car trips anymore, where are we going to get more demand? How is demand supposed to move higher? I don't see a reason for it.
Right. And, well, let's see, I think I got the wrong one pulled up on the screen here. So I'm just going to fix that.
Oh, yeah. Nope, not quite that. Close.
Yeah. So one of the things that this article points out is the number of folks who are filling up their tank on a weekly basis, which is an interesting metric if you think about it, because that on some level will tell you, how much people are driving. We think about big, demand draws and stuff like that, but it says that let's see here, the number of drivers who get gas weekly dropped 26% in August versus prior to the pandemic. In January and in February, 43% of drivers said they filled up at least one week, but just 32% said they currently do so that frequently. At the same time, the number of drivers who fill up their tank less often than once per month doubled from 4 to 8%. The other thing to keep in mind here, it talks about the folks who are going down, the Lyft and Uber, how those are going down. But with what we're seeing in California with the legal stuff, you might actually see that kind of offset some of this demand drop, right? Because if there's less Uber drives, and I don't know what percentage of Uber drives come, Uber and Lyft come during the day versus, Friday night after midnight. But if I'd have to look at the data, but I'm just saying, I think Lyft was going to suspend or did suspend their activity in California. Uber is going to do the same. So that might pick up some demand lost, or do you think people carpool? I mean, how do you think that will weigh in if it kind of rolls out like California wanted to roll out?
I don't know, but clearly it's not enough. Clearly there aren't enough people who are ordering their groceries from services to account for these drops. I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think probably I think a lot of people maybe were taking Ubers also, to go out at night to restaurants, and that is just not happening at all.
Yeah. Well,
because people are stupid. Sorry. Yeah. I have to say, I'm sorry. It's because people and politicians are stupid. Stupid.
Here it comes. The doctor, he's about to go off. It's 143 episodes. He's about to unload on you people.
We're only 4 minutes into this podcast. Sorry. I'm sorry. I shouldn't call people stupid. It's not nice. It's not nice. Let's talk about the fact that I need to make a correction. Apparently, the production is starting to come back in the Gulf of Mexico. The BSEE now estimates that only 53% of oil production in the Gulf of Mexico is shut in. So that's slightly under 1 million barrels a day. So let's make that correction.
Okay, good enough for me.
There we go.
Let's go to Reuters. U.S. oil and gas auction draws tepid bidding. Can't speak. Bidding from weekend drillers. A large auction of federal oil and gas cases in New Mexico ended on Thursday, attracting far less interest from drillers than recent sales in the state, according to the results posted on an online auction site. Now, this
Can we people some Red Bull first of all, because like it's tepid, it's weak, it's tired. Like, come on, guys, put some zip into it. Some Red Bull.
So there's a lot to think about this. This headline. The headline. What I mean, on some level, you could just look at it and go, yeah, sure. But I mean, did you go look at the acreage? I didn't. No, I didn't. I'm saying, like, did Reuters?
Did the Reuters people go look at the acreage? No. Yeah. So apparently, they only want to spend like what 169 an acre compared to 1,386 at a sale in February. But as you said, who knows what kind of acres they were offering? Also, and then here's another interesting stat is drilling parcels in New Mexico auction during the Trump administration averaged $5,500 per acre. Also interesting. So I was actually wondering if that had something to do with it. If the fact that the Biden administration seems to have promised to end drilling on federal lands, and so people are like, well, we could bid for these, parcels, but by the time we're ready to drill on them, like they could just shut it down. So they're not. I mean, that in and of itself could be part of the reason why people don't want to pay that much.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those headlines. It's so it's news. I'm not saying it's not news. I don't know what the news means. Like, it would be nice to have a quote from some analyst or expert saying, well, this was tier 1 acreage, and the fact that no one bid on it was really surprising because these companies just 6 months ago had said they were going to. Like, that would be like, that's the kind of, or this is a hodgepodge of stuff. It's not really surprising in a low price environment. Like, that's kind of like the one snippet that this piece would be.
And no editor was like, hey, could you call someone who bid on this and see what they thought?
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what it means. It's not surprising, obviously. But to your point, we have the election coming up. We have the money squeeze on. So yeah, we'll see.
Apparently, Biden just said in Pennsylvania that it's a lie that he's going to end fracking. Trump says that he's going to end fracking, and that's a lie. So
he's not. But when they remove him from office tomorrow. So
he might not, but
yeah, like the first year when he's in, he will keep it. But when they Article 25 him, we
got Article 25 him when they remove the puppeteer. Sorry, oh boy,
in rare form today.
It's because I had to get up. I got up at I was up at 5:30 in the morning. So
it's lovely.
Yeah, and of course, even though we're doing this by video, no one can see that. I'm wearing a full face of makeup here, but my lighting is so bad that no one can even tell.
Yeah. So I agree that Biden is not going to end it. Kamala will end it when she takes over, whenever that is. So I'm with him. He's being honest. He can look voters in the face with a straight eye. So here is an exclusive from Reuters. Indian state refiners halt oil imports from Chinese companies. Sources. So I'm just curious, what makes this an exclusive?
Only Reuters knows. Only Reuters got the scoop. The other people, the door was shut in their face.
But Reuters syndicates thousands of newspapers. So is it exclusive for the syndication as well?
It's kind of weird. After becoming a little more friendly with various reporters, I've kind of gotten a front row seat to the whole, is this really exclusive? Are they allowed to say it's exclusive? Sometimes Bloomberg will say, exclusive, or with a breaking or something, and then Wall Street Journal will be like, we broke that 2 weeks ago, or that's not an exclusive. And then they'll like have a little Twitter fight, and the claws will come out, and they'll like claw at each other. Well, and then like in a year, the guy who's working for Bloomberg will now be working for Reuters, and the Reuters person will be working for us, and it's all. So.
Well, I want to say this is an exclusive podcast. It is the only 123rd episode of Energy Week that we will record and publish. So everything here is exclusive. I'm gonna start using that. I'm gonna start calling everything exclusive sources. I gotta start doing that more often. Breaking. Yeah, breaking. So Ellen, now
why do we care about this?
Well,
I'll tell you why we care.
It's posturing though, but is it posturing, or is it really something we're going to see play through? Because there is a lot going on between India and China.
I think it's posturing, but I do think that it is potentially indicative of a geopolitical shift that we could see hitting the oil market sometime this year, sometime next year, but just something to really keep an eye on. So, India and China they have tensions. They've always had tensions. In the area where they have tensions and they could possibly fight is like this really small area, like surrounded by mountains. So it's not really going to affect anyone if they fight. However, these are two big oil importers. And my sense has always been that while like a war or some kind of military altercation between the two of them wouldn't necessarily do much for oil demand. It wouldn't like threaten it. It wouldn't like use that much oil. But what India and China could do, or what I could see happening, is that they basically, that this spills over into the economic side, that the clash spills over into the economic side, and one or the other basically forces the oil suppliers to choose. So China, and I think that would be China, not India, because China has much more leverage here. China could say to Saudi Arabia, choose. You either get to supply us with oil or India, but not both. And, in that case, I believe that Saudi Arabia would have to pick China because China is by far their biggest customer. They want India to be a bigger customer. They want to do this Reliance deal for this Reliance refinery, but it's not done yet. It's not going to be done yet. And their infrastructure and their deals in China are much, much deeper. So I would guess that, if it came down to it and they had to choose, that Saudi Arabia would end up supplying China. And then if they cut their supplies to India, someone else is going to have to fill in that role. So I would say not necessarily have like a huge effect on prices, but could potentially cause kind of like a reordering of trade, which would be very interesting to see China try to leverage its consumption power as opposed to seeing like supply power leveraged.
Right. And so I actually covered a little bit of this last week, not this angle, but in the War Room newsletter, because Exxon got delisted or is getting delisted today. I don't know if it has happened or happens at the end of the day from Dow. It's not delisted, but removed from the Dow for Salesforce. Like I never would have thought Salesforce would have replaced the Exxon, but good for them.
Can I make just like a quick interjection? Okay, so if you want to read something about Salesforce. So there's this book that came out a couple of years ago. Oh shoot, I'm blanking on it, but on the title. But it has this like unicorn on the cover wearing like a hoodie sweatshirt, and it's basically about this guy who was like a writer, he wrote about like tech and business, and lost his job and ended up getting a new job working for this company called HubSpot, which was basically like a competitor of Salesforce. Mm-hmm. And he writes this like story of this bizarre like company and its bizarre obsession with Salesforce. And he got to like go to their big convention called like Dreamforce or something. And it's like, it's like a cult, the way he describes it. Like Salesforce is like a cult.
Okay, I think I've found the book, but I can't find it. It's not.
It's in the other room. I have a copy of it, and I'd hold it up, but it's not in my office. It's with my pleasure reading, not my my work reading.
It's like it's been taken out back and shot, and I can't find it anywhere. So this
really?
is what you're talking about. You're talking about let's put this over here real quick. Talking about this one right here. See?
Sorry.
There it is.
No, that's not it. It's
unicorn. No, not yet.
No. Oh
Okay.
gosh. Hold on. Gosh. What was it called? It's about HubSpot.
Oh, HubSpot.
Yeah, but they talk about it's like here it's called Disrupted. Here.
Yeah, Disrupted. My misadventure in the
Yeah.
startup bubble.
Yep. Here you go. Yeah, read that book. It was kind of hilarious, but also really terrifying. And the guy who wrote it also wrote that show Silicon Valley, of which I only saw one season.
Okay.
Because I don't get HBO, but
there is a well, I can't get it. That's a unicorn head there. You're right.
Yeah.
Okay. So
anyway,
what I was saying about
Salesforce.
yeah, Salesforce took down Exxon on the Dow. So here's a chart from the daily oil consumption. I think it's from 2019, and you can see that the gap between China and India is really staggering. Like it's not even close. Though I mean, so when you're talking about the leverage that China has over the market, it's not like India is a close second, or India is going to close the gap next year, or India is going to close the gap next 5 years. India is barely beating Japan right now. And that's no knock on Japan. Like, good for them. But the population of India is how many orders of magnitude larger than Japan's?
Many.
Yes, India's barely beaten Canada. Okay. They're about twice the size of Canada. But still.
But there's one interesting thing about India that we have to remember, and this is more like anecdotal, comes from my husband who's been to India many times. He says that India doesn't have the same kind of auto infrastructure that we have. So like they don't have big highways between places. Like you take the train basically to get around. And so for India to become the kind, like to say like, okay, everyone in India is going to consume, like people consume oil and gasoline and fuel like people in the United States, they'd have to shell out and they'd have to invest in a lot of road infrastructure for that
Right.
may not ever happen. That being said, so I think you'd have to like take down like if you're doing some sort of multiplier, like number of people times capacity to use gasoline or whatever, I would cut it down from the United States. I would say that not everyone in India is going to become a consumer like the US. However, there's still a lot of potential there.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. I think if you look at with the U.S., so the U.S. is like 22nd in per capita usage, but some of the ones that are above it are like small islands, so it doesn't really work out well. But if you roll down the U.S.'s per capita usage to like Germany's level, it still has a ton of room for India to grow. So but my only point is that India is not going. You know, China theoretically could catch up to the U.S. because of the amount of people they have and how large their middle class is and all stuff relatively quickly. India's got a long way to go. It's just not going to be there. So from a leverage standpoint, they have it. The only thing I'd push back on, Ellen, is China has done an outstanding job of distracting everyone in the world over COVID over the past few months. I mean, we've got the South China Sea, we've got Australia imports, we've got Hong Kong, we've got the Indian border. They've done a lot, but if India was smart, they would come out and welcome companies to come to relocate out of China. They would be really pounding that message home, which then might shift some of this power back to them because obviously, A, that would increase their oil intake. But B, if you start getting these multinational companies to build their factories in your country, well, there's a lot of infrastructure that has to go along with that, but also it just gives you power because people are invested in your country. So, but India really hasn't taken that mantle and ran with it yet.
Yeah, and India's got issues with foreign investment because they have a lot of very nationalistic laws about, you know, joint ventures and things like that. So like in order to like open up in India, they have to have an Indian owner that owns like 50% or more. And that's really kept foreign investment back.
Yep.
So
yep. India, if you want to win,
I think Modi wanted to change a lot of that, but hasn't. He's made some changes, but I don't think he's gone quite as far.
Okay, this is from the New York Times. Here we go. Big oil is in trouble. Period. Its plan: flood Africa with plastic. Now, this is we just say this right now. Africa's a big place. So, like, if you put the U.S., you could put the U.S. inside of the Sahara Desert. So, to flood the continent with plastic that's a massive undertaking. I didn't realize they were going all in like that.
Yeah, maybe perhaps the person who wrote the headline for that article was a little overboard.
Well, it says confronting a climate crisis that threatens the fossil fuel industry. Oil companies are racing to make more plastic, but they face two problems.
Wait a minute, hold on.
Yeah,
the oil companies are rushing to make plastic because they are afraid that they're like not going to have a lot of time to make in which to make more plastic.
Confronting a climate crisis that threatens the fossil fuel industry, comma, oil industries are racing to make more plastic.
Yeah, that sentence doesn't make any sense. Did somebody think about that before they wrote it and then edited it?
But they face two problems. Many markets are already awash with plastic, and few companies are willing to be dumping grounds for the world's plastic waste.
Okay, hold on. So let's parse this. So the fossil fuel industry wants to make more plastic because it's afraid that the climate crisis or the policies related to the climate crisis are going to legislate away their ability to make plastic. But also, people don't want plastic, and no one wants plastic waste. So basically, they're saying that like there is absolutely no demand at all for plastic.
Yes, climate doesn't want it, and people don't want it. But they're going to flood Africa with it.
Okay, yeah, this article makes no sense. I'm sorry. Apparently, Africa is a black hole, which will just take everything. That's basically what this article is saying. Wow, what a horrible stereotype.
Yes,
those writers should be canceled.
Well, and here's the beauty of it. So let's start the next paragraph. The industry think it's found a solution to both problems in Africa. Okay, what are the problems? Many markets are already awash with plastic, and few countries are willing to be dumping grounds for the world's plastic. So when you write this next sentence that Africa is the solution to both, then that means that whatever many markets meant, it didn't include the African markets. So Africa is not awash with plastic, and you're saying Africa is willing to be a dumping ground. That's really an interesting take there.
Yeah. God, could you imagine someone pitching this article? Like, there's no demand for plastic. There's no demand for plastic waste, but Africa really wants it.
Yes, Africa wants it. Yes, no one wants to be a dumping ground but Africa. Like, what? Like, I don't even understand that. I mean, the reality is that.
So they're saying Kenya says there's a plastic bag ban, but they are trying to change that?
Well,
I'm very confused.
Yeah, I know. According to documents reviewed by the New York Times, an industry group representing the world's largest chemical makers and fossil fuel companies is lobbying to influence U.S. trade negotiations with Kenya, one of Africa's biggest economies, to reverse its strict limits on plastics, including a tough plastic bag ban. It's also pressing for Kenya to continue importing foreign plastic garbage, a practice it has pledged to limit. Okay, so let me just say to all of our left-leaning friends real quick. Let's just assume that this is 100% true. This is why you do not want the government in charge of trade policy and doing things like this, because this is what happens. They lobby the government to get practices that you do not want. They pay them a bunch of money, and that's how it happens. So there's that. But what? Who? This is strange because the documents are reviewed by the New York Times, which they've never had an error of substance and ever, I don't think. And it's from an industry group representing the world's largest chemical makers and fossil fuel companies in lobbying to influence U.S. trade negotiations with Kenya, one of Africa's biggest economies. So, who is the trade group that they speak of?
Like, why would they not name the American Chemistry Council? Maybe.
But no, like seriously, why would you not name them?
God, this article is just bizarre. I think they should retract it and rewrite it and make it make sense.
Yeah, I don't understand because I mean, you would think that you would say, if this was the Ray Wald pact for humanitarian atrocities, you would quote us in there as like we're wanting to ruin the world. Like I don't know why you would hide the name of the people. That I have no idea. Okay, we're done with this one.
Yeah,
I don't even know.
That was a big nothingness.
Plastics there's problems with plastic. That's fine, but good grief, New York Times. This is pretty bad. Anyways, okay. Let's go to Bloomberg. Oh, hey, shout out to my boy Sergio Chapa. First day today at Bloomberg. Left the Houston Chronicle.
Hey.
Good for him. He's over there. So here we go. Mini reactors are gaining traction in the push for greener grids. The new design would be easier to build than traditional plants, but still may not be cheaper than wind or solar. Now, let's just talk about that real quick.
Mhm.
Talk about may not be cheaper. Are we talking about on day one? Are we talking about when you give them all these tax credits? Are we talking about including maintenance? What does that mean, Ellen?
Yeah, I don't know. They don't write about this a lot. They don't explore this. I think that small modular nuclear reactors are really interesting. When it comes to the energy scene, I've written about them a couple times before in Forbes because I think that big nuclear reactors, I'd like to see more of them, but there's just no will or money to pay for big projects like that. We've seen all we're seeing is more nuclear reactors are just getting old and closing, but they're a really important source of baseload energy that non-fossil fuel baseload energy. And so I think that small modular nuclear reactor technology is really interesting because hopefully they won't be as expensive as a big nuclear power plant, but also I can see them being deployed, say, or being used by, like say for server farms, or like like say you have like a factory area, like an industrial area or like an industrial ring, and you can kind of like concentrate them around a particular small modular nuclear reactor that powers them. And to me, I just see it as a really compelling new technology. And yeah, there's still work to be done on it, but it just makes a lot more sense economically than building gigantic, big nuclear power plants, which we seem incapable of doing because the costs are just so astronomical that contractors go broke before they can finish it.
Well, the other thing is, okay, so let's take the large nuclear out of contention for a second. Let's say you are building in, an emerging market, and you're saying, okay, listen, this city in the emerging market is growing rapidly, and we need to make sure that we don't have, brownouts, blackouts. We need to make power. These guys are really small, and especially get to the micro modulars. They're really small, and the ability to deploy them is a lot faster than it is to go and clear a bunch of land for a solar farm or a wind farm. You could again, with the micro modulars, at least you could deploy them a little bit more spread out. So it seems that they're actually better suited for rapid growth type environments where you might see places scale up instead of even having to build a large coal plant or whatever. It'd be quicker to deploy, I would think, and they're going to last for what they. I don't know if they last. Do these last for 40 years like the nuclear plants, or are they 20 years? I can't remember.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they even really know yet.
I think the micros last for 20 years. I don't know about these. I think these are a little bit the bigger ones. But anyways, so you sit there and you start saying, well, the cost of the land. You start factoring all this other stuff, and then the longevity of it. It would seem that this would be a better option, and it works when it rains, snows, sleet, shines, cloudy day, windy day, whatever.
Yeah,
it's going to work.
It is going to work, and I think I wish there was more attention being paid to this because I just think it's such a better, a more viable option. But a lot of people just seem so focused on wind and solar, without realizing that this is a potentially viable source of baseload energy that is much more feasible. If you really want to try to decarbonize, then I just think that nuclear is going to play a role. And if it's too expensive to build big plants, then go small.
Yeah, and I think these are a little bit more, a little bit safer on the meltdown stuff. And just on the meltdown stuff in general, we have nuclear subs that are going around the ocean at all times, and they're not melting down. So
not yet.
I'm sorry. Not yet. Okay. So I came across this morning. I sent it to you. This is from Statista. OPEC countries further diversify exports. It's an interesting chart, if assuming that the quote data is correct according to sources exclusively. This is the OPEC. This is from OPEC themselves. So if you want to believe OPEC, there you go. But Ellen, the amount of drop offs, the amount of percentage of exports, at least from petroleum products to other exports, was a lot more than I had anticipated. But it's been lower too. So it's not as if it's at the bottom, but it's not.
Sorry, they spell petroleum wrong. It's just kind of funny. It's an odd way of spelling petroleum. Petroleum.
Is it like the Brit way or something?
No, that's just the made-up way. I shouldn't be criticizing anyone's spelling because I'm actually a terrible speller and have been my entire life. But you know,
oh yeah.
I'm looking at that. I'm like, there's something really weird about that word. What is it? And then Nate texts me and he's like, petroleum.
So I misspelled industry the other day in a newsletter. I use Grammarly. Actually, the screen here you can see I use Grammarly to help spell check my stuff, and it was acting really weird. And so I was cutting and pasting back and forth. And so I finally cut and pasted and redid everything to make sure it's all spelled right. And then someone sent me things like, "Hey, you misspelled industry in the title because it didn't check the title." I had to check the title. I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
Okay, I still can't remember the difference between effect and affect.
Well, okay, yeah. So what if you look at this on the exports? So I guess there's a couple ways to look at this. Is it that so the percentages could be down, but the overall volume could actually still be up, right?
Yeah.
So it could just be a percentage thing, or it could be that no, the percentages are going down to show that the volume is going down as well. What was your takeaway?
Yeah, I just thought that it's interesting. I thought what they said about Equatorial Guinea, for example, went from being a net importer to actually, to an exporter. UAE is only making 13% of its export revenue from oil, and instead it's also exporting aluminium, as they say in Britain, gold and diamonds. I thought it was really interesting. Saudi Arabia diversifying as well, which we've known about. That Saudi Arabia actually wants to keep more petroleum at home and refine it at home and export products. And you hear about this and you know that this is something that they've been working on, but actually seeing it show up in the data here is, I think it's interesting. So.
Yeah, and we need to reach out to the New York Times to see if OPEC wants to flood Africa with plastics as well.
Yeah. They want to flood the world with plastics. Yeah, it's interesting because a couple years ago, this was like 2015 or whatever. I remember Fareed Zakaria said, Saudi Arabia can drill holes in the ground and pump out oil, and that's it. That's all they can do. I was very upset by that statement because I was like, no, that's not all they can do. Actually, they do that and they do it well, but they also do a lot of other things, very strategic things with their oil, and I think this just proves that they're not just. They don't just drill for oil and export it. They refine it. They've got a huge growing chemical business. They know what they're doing. And I think that the numbers show this now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. And that, we'll link to this Statista article. If you go click on the very first link in there, that's where they're getting their data from. Actually, pretty cool chart there from OPEC. Okay, Miss Wald, Forbes, investing.com. Where else will you be this week?
Where else will I be? As of now, that sounds like that's about it. I've got some other things in the works. I'm looking at a piece. I'm looking at the kind of election is heating up now. So looking at some of the energy policies and how that's going to affect what voters who are concerned with energy should at least know about various politicians, whether they're going to ban fracking or not. And also some interesting stuff going on in the ESG front. I think we maybe have talked about that before, about the investing stuff. There was a very interesting piece then, and I'm looking at writing something on this study that came out that said that people thought that ESG funds did a lot better during the coronavirus panic, recession, whatever we're calling it is, but actually the study found that they did not. That ESG does not insulate your investments from world panic. So that's what I'm thinking about this week.
The only thing that isolates your investments from world panic is being directly attached to the Fed's checkbook.
Yeah, exactly. Or being a member of Congress and doing, insider trading.
I mean, yeah, right. So whatever. Okay, so we will be off next week. We'll be back the week after, and then the show webinar is the day after that. So be sure to
Exciting.
be sure to sign up. It is a limited capacity, and so be sure to sign up and get that done. Miss Wald, I'll be at the War Room newsletter, which will be linked to in the show notes, and I have added Disrupted, my misadventure in the startup bubble. I'm going to put that officially on my wish list here later today. So
It was funny. It was a funny book. I don't know. It may be a little bit dated at this point, but it was funny.
oh, let me just say this: you don't do audiobooks? Never mind. If you do
No.
audiobooks, they are releasing some cool new features. So
Ooh.
yeah, I just got a bunch of they just added a whole bunch of books for free to your library, so it's pretty neat. Anyways, all right, Miss Wald, we'll be back 2 weeks from today, listeners, when we will. Oh, maybe Dr. Foreman. So we'll talk to you then.
Yeah. Have a great Memorial Day, everyone. Labor Day.
Labor Day.
Shoot, it's Labor Day. Wow. Oh boy. Labor Day. We made it through the summer.
Yeah.
Don't
and
set us back to May, Alan. I don't want to live through that summer again.
Also, New York Times, do better.
Yeah.
Do better. So
Do better
Do
with your
better, New York
plastics.
Times.